Katsuhiro Otomo is a manga artist, anime director, and a screenwriter. He is best known for being the creator of the manga Akira and director of the film on which it is based. A hugely influential film which led to the Western world taking anime more seriously as an artistic and cinematic expression. He also co-directed, produced, wrote, and scripted well-known films such as Roujin Z, Memories, Metropolis, and Steamboy. Katsuhiro Otomo, born in April 14, 1954, in Hasama in Miyagi Prefecture in Japan. As the only boy in a family with older and younger sisters, he liked to read and draw manga on his own. Restricted by his parents to buy one manga book per month, Otomo usually chose Kobusha's shonen magazine, which included Osamu Tezuka Astro Boy and Mitsuteru Yokoyama Tetsujin 28 Go series he copied by drawing in elementary school. However, after reading Shotaro Ishinomori How to Draw Manga, he actually understood how to draw manga properly and started to do it more seriously. The animation of this period, especially the works coming out of the Tokyo Animation Studios, Mushi Production and Toei Doga, influenced the young Otomo. Works such as Gigantor, Astro Boy, and Hall's Prince of the Sun encouraged him to develop his career in animation. However, it was the films coming from the United States that channeled his rebellious nature. 5 Easy Pieces and Easy Rider would serve as inspiration for his future characters. Young rebels who took too many drugs and did not care about authority or the pressure put on them by their parents. In the 60s, Otomo saw protests by both students and workers against the Japanese government everywhere. The riots and general chaotic situation of that time served as inspiration for what would become his best-known work. At that time, one of his friends introduced him to an editor at Futabasha who, after seeing Otomo's manga, told the young student to contact him if he would move to Tokyo after graduation. Otomo did exactly that and began his career as a professional manga artist. He made his manga debut with Yusei in 1973, based on the novel Matthew Falcone by Prosper Merimee. For the next 10 years, he worked on short stories in manga of various genres, including biblical stories and worldly dramas. He became a weekly contributor to Manga Action and worked there throughout the 70s, and then worked for its rival Young Magazine in the 80s. In his stories, Otomo prefers protagonists from the underprivileged classes. This can be seen in one of his most prominent early works, Domu. The plot revolves around the duel of psychic powers between an old man and a girl in a ramshackle Tokyo apartment complex, but it had its distant origin in Otomo's desire to retell the plot of Sarutobi et-chan, an obscure anime show for girls based on a manga by Shotaro Ishinomori. In 1982, Otomo began what would become his most acclaimed and famous work, Akira. The publisher Kodansha had long been asking him to write a series for their new young magazine, but he had been busy with other work. From the first meeting with the publisher, Akira was only going to be about 10 chapters, so Otomo said he didn't expect it to be a success. It was 8 years in the making and 2,000 pages of illustrations. Akira takes place in futuristic cyberpunk Neo-Tokyo, a few decades after the destruction of Tokyo years earlier by a massive explosion. The story centers on Kaneda, the leader of a biker gang, and his mentally unstable friend and partner Tetsuo. After a near collision with an infant spare, the product of government research to imbue humans with powerful psychokinetic energies, Tetsuo is similarly affected. As Tetsuo struggles to control his new abilities, Kaneda, desperate to learn more, joins forces with a resistance group, including Kei, a woman he takes an interest in. As Tetsuo abilities begin to spiral out of control, the military, led by Colonel Shikishima, take definitive measures to try to contain him, wanting to prevent Neo-Tokyo from suffering the same destruction that occurred years earlier with test subject Akira in Tokyo. Also in 1982, Otomo made his anime debut working as a character designer for the film Armageddon Genma Wars. It was while working on this film that Otomo began to think he could make it on his own. In 1987, Otomo directed an animated work for the first time, a segment for which he also wrote the script and drew the animation in the anthology Neo-Tokyo. He followed up with 2 segments in another anthology released that same year, Robot Carnival. With so much experience accumulated in animation and an established name in the medium, he was given the green light to direct the adaptation of his manga, Akira. Although most of the characters' design and settings were faithfully adapted from the manga, the plot differs considerably and does not include much of the latter half of the manga, which continued to be published for 2 years after the film's release. The film exhibits a high technical quality in all its sections, a truly spectacular animation with a great flexibility in the movements of the characters, ambitious scenarios of a devastated Tokyo with millions of details where everything seems to be alive, an unprecedented milestone in animation. All the visual section is accompanied by a great soundtrack which draws heavily from the traditional Indonesian gamelan as well as Japanese no-music, was composed by Shoji Yamashiro and performed by Geino Yamashirogumi. It had a budget of $9 million, second only to Akira Kurosawa's Ran. It was the most expensive animated film ever made in Japan. The entire film consists of 160,000 drawings with a palette of 327 colors. Akira was released in Japan on July 16, 1988, and the following year in the United States. After several theatrical and VHS releases, it became an international cult film that grossed over $80 million in home video sales worldwide. It is considered by audiences and critics to be one of the best films in history, especially in the animation, action, and science fiction genres, as well as a milestone in Japanese animation. It is also a seminal film in the cyberpunk genre as well as in adult animation. The film had a significant impact on popular culture worldwide, paving the way for the growth of anime and Japanese popular culture in the Western world, as well as influencing numerous works in animation, comics, film, music, television, and video games. Years later, Otomo was executive producer of Memories, an anthology films based on 3 of his stories. He also wrote the screenplay for Stink Bomb and Cannon Fodder, the latter of which he also directed. He has worked extensively with the Sunrise Studio. In 1998, he directed the short film Gundam Mission to the Rise. To celebrate the 20th anniversary of its Gundam franchise, the studio has animated and produced his feature film Steamboy, Freedom Project, and SOS Tokyo Metro Explorers The Next. The 2001 animated film Metropolis features a screenplay written by Otomo that adapts Tetsuka's manga on the same name. In 2013, Otomo participated in Short Piece, an anthology consisting of 4 short films. He directed Combustible, a tragic love story set in the Edo period, based on his 1995 manga Hai no Johin. while Hajime Katori directed Farewell to Arms, which depicts a battle in ruined Tokyo based on Otomo 1981 manga of the same name. Combustible won the grand prize in the animation category at the Japan Festival of Audiovisual Arts and was shortlisted in 2013 for Best Animated Short Film at the 85th Academy Awards, but failed to be nominated. Describing his characterization style, Otomo said that at first he tried to draw and imitate very traditional manga art such as Astro Boy, but when he was in high school, the illustration of people like Tadanori Yoko and Yoshitaro Isaka were popular, so he wanted to create manga characters with this illustrative art style. When asked about the praise from Japanese critics that he was the first manga artist to draw realistic Japanese faces, Otomo said that he always tries to balance fantasy and realism. Depicting things too realistically damage the social realism of the work, and if you go too far into the realm of fantasy, it damages its imaginative capacity. However, he claims that the realism of his early works is probably due to having used friends as character models. Katsuhiro Otomo's immense and sustained creative career over the years has made him a transcendental artist from the 80s until now, a true creator of sensations, different atmospheres, and innovative stories. He is undoubtedly an artist who has left his mark on paper and on screen.